I am reviewing a couple of viewers' eBay stores. This first one, Straight Execution, has a store that is 226 items strong. Looks like mostly men's clothing. 226 actives, primarily pre-owned, primarily men's clothing, and 118, so about 50% sell-through, which is not bad, but we can get that number up. I'm just gonna scroll down this page and look at the brands. Carhartt, good. I'm seeing brands that are not ideal, like Echo Unlimited is not great. I don't think Costa is all that great. Route 66, I don't think it's very good. Rocawear, I don't believe is great. So I'm seeing a lot of stuff that is not ideal in terms of doing quick flipping or relatively quick flipping for clothing. When you do clothing, this will come as no shock to people who have watched the channel for any length of time, but I think it behooves you to focus in on the quality of the brand as kind of the arch variable, the most important thing in your consideration of how to source. Some of these are decent, like here's an Ariat pair of jeans, which is great. Robert Graham is okay. We'll talk about the photos in a second here. So this has promise. This is an okay inventory. I think it would be served by cutting out some of the less desirable stuff like English Laundry. It is always good to err on the side of the good brands. And also maybe he is acquiring this clothing for free or for very, very cheap. Maybe these are bins pickups or garage sale pickups or something. Let us take a look at a listing here. The title is decent. I would bump shirt up to here, right after the brand. That's not a fatal flaw. This is going to be confusing, this LG. So that is short, that's an abbreviation for large. And I know that you are meaning here to say long sleeve. If it was LNG sleeve, that would be different, but this may actually be confusing the eBay search metrics as well. It may be clocking that as large and in conflict with XL. I can't say for sure that that's happening, but I would say either spell out long or do L/S. Paid shipping, $8. 60-day free returns. This is good. This is all good. You are very thorough with your tags. And the description looks pretty long. So let's see what we have. Used, well cared for, no rips, stains, or tears, pit to pit, 26 inches. And then this Echo Unlimited men's shirt is perfect for any occasion, whether it's for workwear, business, casual events, parties, or traveling. Okay, so my note here is it is good that you're trying to cover your bases, you're trying to market your item. The thing is, when you do these listings hundreds to thousands to hundreds of thousands of times, any little piece of this that you can cleave off that will save you time and streamline your process will be very, very helpful to do. And also from the eBay buyer's perspective, what this looks like is homework. This looks like I have to now dig through this information to find the information that's relevant. And it also feels like they are being marketed to a little bit, which of course they are. But this part you can 100% just cut out. That would be my recommendation. Because it is not technically true. Not that you're lying, but this is kind of a stretch. People are not going to wear a Echo Unlimited plaid shirt with epaulettes on the shoulders in a business setting, traveling. Like this is just a kind of old-timey way to market clothing, and this isn't going to really move anybody. It's not going to touch any hearts or minds. So I would say probably just remove that part. I would also remove, here's the key to understanding the description thing is take out anything that is redundant with the title and the tags. So what you want in here is information that is not available elsewhere in the listing. And also you want some copy paste text that reassures the buyer on a couple of specific pain points. So you get it to a point where you can just copy and paste this template into all of your clothing listings and just put in a sentence or two up top that is specific to the item in terms of condition. So what the buyers want to be reassured about is that you were thorough in your checking. There's nothing wrong with it that they didn't notice in the photos. So something like you said here, well cared for. I would be more specific. Down here, no rips, stains, or tears. I would, I would just maybe combine those two into one sentence. Well cared for, no rips, stains, or tears, period. And then go into your other copy paste text, which should be, to my mind and in my observation, about your shipping policy, especially your handling time, so people know that it's not going to be the old eBay routine of I order an item and then I have to wait 3 weeks to get it for the person to get off their ass and ship it. So you want to reassure them about your handling policy, which are you top rated plus? Yeah, so you have 1 day handling time. Just say that in the description, and you don't have to type it out every time. In fact, you shouldn't. Again, you should just have a document somewhere with all of this written up where you can copy paste it or use auto hotkeys for it. So you can program into your phone and also into your computer. If you have a Mac, I think you can do it on PC too, where you can program in, you can type a string of specific characters on your keyboard and it'll auto-populate whatever text you want. So you could say like DFG on your keyboard and it'll just vomit out this template for you. Or you can put it in your eBay templates, whatever it is, just so you don't have to type all this stuff out by hand every time, which I'm guessing maybe you are. So the condition and the shipping and handling time, so say something like, I offer same day or 1 day handling. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It's like quick shipping, same or next business day handling time on all orders, and then some snippet about your return policy. If you're dissatisfied in any way, I offer free 60-day returns, no worries. Something like that. That's very streamlined, concise. And if there's other parts of your business policies that are important to you, then put in some snippet about those too. But I think that those are the most important. And if there are flaws, put it in your, put it here in condition, and then take the same note and copy paste it up top. So it's the first article in that description. So that would be, of course, in place of well cared for, no rips, stains, or tears. So when you have all of this in place, all you have to punch in, since it looks like you don't have measurements in the photos, which is totally fine, I didn't, you can just plug in the flaws and the measurements and you're done. You don't have to worry about coming up with this sales copy, which is honestly probably going to turn some buyers off. Like you want to be protective of your time, and also be aware of the fact, you're selling an Echo Unlimited shirt, which fair play, it may sell. It's not the most desirable item in the world. I don't think it's a high sales velocity brand, but somebody who's going to spend, you're asking $16 on a shirt, doesn't need to be pitched this hard. If you were selling like a Louis Vuitton thing, which maybe you shouldn't anyway because counterfeits and it's kind of sketchy, but if you found something really unique, vintage, something really nice, I would say it might actually make sense to write your description in this way with the history of the item. Like good old Rick from Thrift Fever, how we miss him, would write out like biographical detail about the pieces because he was such a font of knowledge and he commanded the history of like vintage, higher end menswear and suits. And he would put in those details, but this was stuff that he was asking like $300 for. And in that case, I think it does actually help you. But for an Echo Unlimited shirt, I think your time probably is better invested elsewhere. Pit to pit, I would say This is another thing that you can just have in a copy paste document or put it into your templates or use the auto hotkey as I suggested. I would write this out as, so instead of doing pit to pit like that, I would say armpit, well here's how I did it, width, armpit to armpit, and then length, collar seam to hem, like that. And then you're done. And you can just copy paste that into wherever it can live that is convenient for you, and that is much more clear than pit to pit. You need these two measurements too. Just this one measurement isn't going to be quite adequate. And I would say actually with long sleeve shirts, I would say sleeve, shoulder, seam to cuff. And you have to be careful with this because sometimes it's the collar seam, especially on t-shirts like raglan shirts. So sometimes you have to switch that around. If you're not doing the tape measure photos for the measurements, I would say it's very good to be descriptive and specific, but not overly specific. Like you don't need too many measurements, but there's a sweet spot where you have an adequate amount. Sleeve arguably is the least important of those two, but I would say width and length are pretty critical. Let's pop up another listing. So let's talk about your photos. They're decent. I would say I would class them as fair. Unlike excellent, good, fair, poor, I would put them at about fair. Easy fixes though. First point is we gotta move away from the closet. So this Carhartt shirt is gonna flip because it's a good item. 3XL tall tee, this will sell. It will not sell, it will sell in spite of the closet photo, I will say. This is the mark of, and I know that you probably are not a new eBay seller, but this is like the visual shorthand for I just started selling on eBay. So you want to move away from this beveled bedroom door or closet photo setup. What you're doing that I really like is, well, A, you're getting the whole item in the photo, and you're using one of those spreader hangers. I assume that you excuse me, probably made your own. This is good. This looks really good. It's a little wrinkly, but that doesn't super matter for something at this price point. If this was a $100 shirt, I would say probably steam it, but that's totally fine. One really easy thing that you can do to improve your photos that takes 2 seconds is switch over to taking 1:1 aspect ratio pics. That means square photos. It's easy to do on a phone, and if you're using a point and shoot camera, a DSLR or something, then there will be an option in this for this in the menus. Sometimes you have to switch out of it, like if you're taking photos, vertical photos of overalls or dresses or stuff that's really long, you can't quite get it into the square frame. Otherwise, square photos, it's not a deal breaker. It's not an enormous deal, but for something that you can just toggle on in 2 seconds on your phone, really improves the quality of your listings because it will not have these blank borders. Be careful. There's a little bit of blur, which is kind of inevitable, but these up close photos like this, one fix is to just snap a couple of them real quick when you're there anyway. Another thing is just to like hold your breath if you're holding your camera in your hands and steady it like that. The big thing here is going to be getting a designated photo background that's like a fabric background or wood background or something. I would say either go for gray, like solid gray. Find an area of your house, if you're working out of your house, that has a wall where you can set up a photo backdrop. They're pretty cheap. You can get them on Amazon. Get a fabric one and steam it out or put it in the dryer to get the seams out of it when you first get it, and hang it up. Make sure it's taut against the wall so you don't get wrinkles in it. And then put like a clothes hanger in the middle of it and then hang it up like that. It'll make a huge difference if you're going to be doing these hanger photos. If your health can support it, like if you have a good neck and back, I would consider setting up a flat lay station as well. Those photos look really great, and there's videos online of people doing that. But if you want to do the hanger photos, I would say bite the bullet and find an area of your house where you can set up like a designated photo area on a wall. And also, I don't know what your lighting setup is like, but I would use at least 2 lights. You can get them for cheap on Amazon. So you can usually get a 2 softbox light setup off of Amazon for pretty cheap. Like this is kind of what you're after, 74 bucks. And maybe you already have one of these. Like I had a really elaborate lighting setup before I figured out how to take proper photos that looked decent, and they were kind of dark like this. So you may already have these photos. If you don't, I would just pay the 74 bucks. It'll pay for itself. What I did was I used ring light. I used 2 ring lights because they were more compact. Those big box lights take up a ton of room. You want to get one of the big ones. These look like the makeup tutorial ones. Like a big, yeah, like this one, 89. So it's more expensive, but they're a little brighter. They're a little less frustrating, and I prefer them to the box lights, but also they put out a little bit of a harder light. So either one is totally fine. If you already have them, the huge quantum leap that you are gonna make is to start taking photos in manual. This is easiest on your phone. I recommend just doing photos on your phone on manual shoot mode. If you use a DSLR, if you're a complete wizard with it, if you know all the settings, then it can make a big difference and it can look really great. But for most of us, the phone is going to be the easiest. Android phones, I know, at least the one that I have, comes preloaded with Pro mode. iPhones, I don't know if they have it built in anymore, but there are third-party apps that you can download that will unlock it. If not, what you want to do is set your, what is it? I don't remember the photo terminology, but you can set the like temperature of the photos to the same Kelvin rating as your lights. So like this is 5600K. You can just manually set it to exactly that. So you don't have to white balance it out every time. You bump your ISO all the way down as low as it can go, and then you adjust the aperture to get the adequate amount of light. And sometimes it helps to bump the ISO up just a little bit. I have a photo on the channel, a video on the channel that goes into this in more detail. But you just get those settings dialed in on Pro mode, and you get the basic backdrop, and you keep using this hanger. Your photos are gonna look great. Looking at your description here, neck to base. I would say hem instead of base. It's just a little more specific. Minor signs of wear. I would avoid using vague sounding descriptions of flaws because in the buyer's mind, they're gonna leap to the worst case scenario where you say minor signs of wear. That could mean really anything. What you probably mean is there's a little bit of fuzzing, a little bit of pilling on the fabric. To a lot of buyers, they're gonna read that as giant pit stains, small holes, whatever. So I would say it's good to be specific. This is also vague, very desirable condition. Desirable to whom? You know, that's pretty subjective. Try to just be objective. And once again, I would just slash and burn most of this that is not relevant to your policies. Let's look at your solds. Wow, you sold a South Pole t-shirt for over 20 bucks. Well done. So you can kind of see in the solds, there are some of the sort of not in super high demand stuff that is selling, but it is way more of the better stuff that we see here. Like I've been scrolling and scrolling and I haven't seen anything for a while that's made me scratch my head, like Wrangler Works. Wrangler Rigs Workwear is good. G-Unit Jeans, brand new, is good. I think it's good. Up here, you know, 7 for All Mankind, Levi's for 18 bucks. Like you're gonna, like there's just less of this stuff in the solds than there is in the actives, as borne out by your general sell-through numbers. So I would say aim for the nicer stuff. The quality of your inventory is not It's not terrible though. There's promise here. Like something like this, it'll eventually sell, but with these kind of less than super desirable photos that make them look dark, and it's not a super in demand brand, you may be sitting on this for like a year. And you want to avoid doing that, or I'll say I want to avoid doing that. And then here you have a really basic template description. So this auto-populate description, I think this is from listing on your phone, is also probably best avoided. Again, there's like a nice medium sweet spot between too little information and too much information. But overall, not bad. A lot of potential, a lot of promise, and you just got to fix a few things and kind of refocus and streamline a little bit. You'll be in great shape. Not that you're in bad shape now, but if you implement those things, you should have a lot more success, and reselling should be easier for you, and you'll have a better time. eBay seller number 2 has a store that's about the same size. It is, let's see here, 283 items, so roughly the same size store. You can already tell the difference in the photo quality. And the photos are not perfect here, but you see the difference immediately. You can tell. It just looks a little more professional with this gray background and with some amount of lighting. And they're still a little dark and stuff, but there's diminishing returns on the photos. You got to get it to the top of the curve where they're pretty good. And then once they're pretty good, added effort isn't going to make that huge of a difference, but getting to that first threshold, that first inflection point is critical, and it does make a huge difference. So let's take a look at the store. 283 items, also mostly men's stuff and also mostly used, and the solds are 314. So this guy basically does not need help at all. There are a couple things, I looked at this briefly, there's a couple things that I think we can maybe narrow in on to help them out a little bit. But look at the quality of the brands here. Untuckit, American Outdoorsman I'm not familiar with, but this is a reasonably priced item with good keywords. American Giant, vintage Nike, another American Giant. Patagonia, North Face, Hilo Hattie, big ostentatious Hawaiian shirt, The Mountain. So this is a man, I'm guessing, who is following. Here comes the pitch, the Menswear Manifesto, which is 401 men's clothing brands that are broken down by sell-through rate. So it's a guide to the good men's clothing brands that you should sell and the ones that you should avoid, and categories within brands that sell and should be avoided. It's free / pay what you want. Link is in the description. So he's selling Manifesto brands. And you can see the difference that makes in terms of the sell-through. Like, let's look. And he sells other stuff too. Some hard goods, toys, video games, shoes, and those items will bump up your sell-through rate significantly, especially video games. And he has some awesome stuff that he sold, like some vintage Super Nintendo and N64 games and stuff. I don't know where you are sourcing these. Don't tell anybody though, because this stuff is really hard to come by. So keep that secret. Keep it safe. Rourke, Rag & Bone, Travis Matthew, vintage Ben Davis, awesome. Rain Spooner, Lululemon, Ralph Lauren, decent. Pull and Bear, this is not a great item, but look at the price. It's like 13 bucks. Yeah, the brands are kicking ass. The brands are on point. I have nothing to offer in the way of criticism there. So your photos look pretty good. These are in the good category. I would count these as good. The way to get them to very good is to light the clothing a little bit better. And the fix there may be as simple as bump your aperture up like 1 or 2 notches. The other thing I would say is you want to endeavor to avoid this wrinkling in the backdrop, because that bumps it down from this looks like a pro photo backdrop to this looks like somebody taking photos on their bed. I am guessing, my interpretation is, because I saw some hard goods listings further down when I did take a peek, like this. Here is my guess. is that you have a photo station with this fabric. This actually might be the identical one that I had. You probably have this nailed up on top and it's free flowing underneath, and then you slot a table against the wall and then you drape it over the table to take your hard goods photos. That's my guess. What I would recommend is just nail the backdrop down and use the table as it is. Just don't worry about it too much, because the kind of stuff that you're selling is stuff like this. Well, maybe the Thomas the Tank Engine DVDs aren't the best example, but most of it is video games, stuff like this. With video games, with really in-demand hard goods like this, especially with video games, the buyers don't really care about presentation. They care about the condition and the price. They don't need a lot of hand-holding when it comes to like the aesthetics of the listing. It just is not super critical. So if you just have even like the shitty plastic tabletop, it is going to be more helpful to you over the long haul to just eliminate this problem where it does actually matter, because this makes your photos look less professional than they could. Not that they look unprofessional, like this looks really good. In fact, is that a flat lay? How did you do that? Wait. Okay, now I'm just confused. So maybe you have a flat lay station, or you're taking this backdrop down and putting it on the ground and then doing flat lays. Whatever your situation is, just I would work a little harder to eliminate these wrinkles, whatever the logistics happen to be, because I'm lost. So this is a title that would benefit from a little bit of triage. You have most of the important keywords in there. The one really important one that is missing is the word shirt. I would just say like Ariat shirt or Ariat Western shirt, men's XS. I would bump the size up to right behind the sex, so men's XS. You don't have to include size in your titles, IMO. And I would max out the character limit on these titles. This looks a little bit short. So whatever relevant, like I would say geometric, Aztec, Southwestern, all over print. You got flip cuff in there. You could put in, also this is a button, not to be pedantic and nitpicky, but this is a button down. So a button down shirt is a shirt with the collar that is buttoned to the body of the shirt. A button up has free floating collars, a tiny point of contention, but I guess it's worth knowing. Your shipping is paid shipping. You got 30-day free returns, which is good. You're top rated plus, you're doing everything right. 1-day handling time, well done. This is just slightly too little information. I would say you may be able to find a few tags. Like I know it's a pain in the ass, but on that drop-down menu, when there's just stuff that you can kind of bang out relatively easily, it's good to just flesh it out a little bit. I think you have the really important parts covered. So this probably isn't a huge deal. This also isn't a huge deal, but I would say what I said to the other guy, which is put in some kind of reassurance about your policies, like your handling time and your returns. Just put something in there. Also, an important detail that I kind of didn't make fully clear enough is make it sound conversational. Like if you were selling this to a friend, you would tell them like, don't worry about it. Like, you know, ship it out the next day. And, you know, if you have any problems, just let me know. I have free returns, something like that. Just a little bit chummy, not gimmicky, not like ingratiating and sycophantic, but just something to like put their worried hearts at ease. So this is the challenge of doing hanger photos, is it's really tough to do the measurements in photo approach. I know that that is a shoulder because I am an eBay clothing seller, or I was an eBay clothing seller. A lot of eBay buyers are not, it's gonna take them like a few moments to clock what it is that they're looking at. And it is made a little more confusing for them by the fact that it doesn't say in the description what that is either. Same here. Even me, I think that's an armpit. I think that that is the width. And I know that that is the length, that's the hem. But the reason this is such a useful approach with the flat lays is that you can show most of the shirt. So like you would see this whole upper part with a ruler or a tape measure, you would see the collar and you would be able to visually tell really quickly what it was you're looking at, which is the value add of doing this approach. This actually may be causing you to lose, maybe not lose sales, but this is not really helping all that much. What I would recommend to you is either just switch to flat lay, like build a flat lay station if it's something that you're interested in doing, or just do the same thing that I recommended the other guy do, which is skip the ruler and put the measurements in the description itself, which might rearrange your listing and photo workflow. But that's going to be more useful to you than doing what you were doing there. Or if you want to keep doing this, maybe have some clarifying text in the description of what those photos are. And if you're taking those same photos for each item, then you can have that be template text. But something to like help orient the buyer a little bit more, I think would help you. One small other little nitpick with your photos is, you can probably already see it here. Where was it? What's that? A little shadow? I have noticed a couple of these little details in your photos from time to time, like where something will be intruding into the shot just a little bit. And, or like the staging, this is very nitpicky, I'm sorry, but like the way the garment is laid out looks slightly awkward, like this. Like this weird sleeve thing that's happening. Like this looks weird. I'm like, this probably looks weird to you too. If you can't fit it into the square photo, instead of bending it there, bend it up here. Like fold the sleeves down like this and fold them both. Instead of, because this looks like you just kind of were rushing and you just kind of shoved it into the frame of the photo. This makes it look weird. Same story here. This looks like you were just moving too fast. Again, like not a fatal flaw. It'll still sell, but it'll sell a little faster and with a little bit more confidence on behalf of the buyer if it looks a little bit nicer. People are how people are, you know, we eat with the eye as well as with the palate, as it were. A little bit of blur on the photos there. I know that I'm writing you on the photos just slightly, and that button looks like it is missing. So tiny little details like this can slip through your attention when you're in the hustle of taking a ton of photos really quickly, but those little oversights can stack up because the buyer has all the time in the world. They can just sit there and stare at that orifice and say, that looks weird. It'll oftentimes just be like an unconscious thing. So just taking like a couple, again, just a couple breaths to double check and like look for these things and pay attention to these things over the long haul, it's going to make a huge difference. And stuff slips through the cracks all the time for everybody. You know, it did for me certainly. Or like little misspellings in the title, stuff like that. These little things like that can add up, and that button is not missing. Also, maybe button all the buttons on the shirt makes it look slightly better. The reason I'm getting so nitpicky with you is because your store is really good. I just think if you handle a couple of these little things, it'll make your life easier and you'll sell even more. But yeah, well done. That's a great example of like the power of brands, the power of just having good stuff and being pretty good at listing on eBay. Like there's your business. There's your income. Good store, well done. Both of you, well done. Hope that this gives you some ideas of how to improve your own store. This is not exhaustive, and this is just kind of like the top level stuff that I am noticing that's jumping out at me. And I didn't go through every single item, but this just gives you a sense of like these things, like the photos or the descriptions. Once you get them dialed in, you don't have to think about them again. And it makes your life easier because especially with like the listing process, it's faster and it just cuts out the stuff that is draining off little bits of your time, and it'll just make your life more enjoyable. Hope that your lives become more enjoyable. Hope that it helps. Appreciate you watching. And if this video does well, I'll do more of these store reviews. Appreciate it.